Thanks for staying with us. You're watching TVC Breakfast. The papers now, let's see how they are leaning in terms of reporting top stories on the papers, beginning with the Nation newspaper. And just as we have said earlier in the news this morning, pressure mounts on NLC over planned protests. No going back, says the Labour leader, Joe Ajero. Of course, there's been so many reactions to this planned move of the labor unions in Nigeria. And from what we see so far, the leaders are saying there's no going back. In other stories there, first on the Nation, Dangote, Soludo, Abiodu, Elumelu, Rwani, others in Tinubu's economic team. We also saw that in our news update earlier. All right. Of course, the picture story there talks about how heated up the coming Ondo APC governorship primary is looking. All right. Now to the New Telegraph. Tinubu to tripartite panel. We may not have answers now, but we're trying. That's President Tinubu to the tripartite panel involving federal government dignitaries as well as members of the private sector in a bid to revamp the economy. He has now set up a presidential economic advisory committee, and for Dangote, one of the key members of the private sector, he is quoted as saying we have what it takes to turn around the economy. And for another key private sector member, Tony Elumelu, he is quoted as saying FX artificial, manipulative, and that implementing decisions we arrived at today will propel our economy. In other stories, we will initiate immediate strike action if attacked during protests, says NLC, ahead of their planned move to embark on national protests. Labour's protest, not contempt. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Falana, tells the Attorney General of the Federation. In the meantime, don't join the hardship protest. Afenifere urges Yoruba. And Atiku to Tinubu is saying, stop blaming opposition for economic woes. Now, Customs awaits FG's directive on Niger Republic border reopening. Co-ops OPS in the rice distribution. Northern Senators Forum urges Niger to hasten return to democracy. On the Edo Goba race, which is also heating up, confusion as 3 Goba candidates emerge in Labour Party's parallel primary, New Telegraph is saying, and the party is quoted here, thus, no cause for alarm over Apapa's letter to INEC. And there's so many other stories there, but, you know, these stand out. Let's check out the leadership. The leadership newspaper is leading with this caption, that's titled 5.108 trillion naira in 8 months, hardship unabated in states despite huge allocations. Labour warns federal government against attack on protesters. Now, governors slam forum over silence on 30 billion naira largesse. CBN pegs purchase of dollars in cash at $500. There's a picture of the CBN Governor Cardoso. On Forex, import volume drops as importers weigh options. And third candidate emerges in Labour Party. That is reflecting again in the papers so far. Blueprint is next. Planned nationwide protest. That's the big story there. And it goes on to say a defiant NLC insists as Afenifere and CSOs urge ceasefire. Police warn against violence. Falana seeks protection. Labour hatching hidden idea. That's a quote attributed to the presidency. Now, thousands benefit from subsidized rice. Customs plans to rejig exercise. All of these, you can check out the details there on the from the Blueprint newspaper. Over now to the West. The West newspaper, Afenifere cautions Yoruba against participating in planned NLC protests as Lagos police sets limits for protesters. Also, bandits invade Agoare Okeogun, kill 1. Customs probe stampede in Yaba office over subsidized rice. That's another developing story there. Ayeda Tiwa confident of picking Ondo APC Goba ticket. And in Oyo State Council polls, the Independent Electoral Committee or Commission in Oyo State assures parties of transparency, equal treatment. Finally, with me is the Punch newspaper. Of course, the NLC protest is still leading the way ahead of other stories. Presidency police issue fresh warnings, it says, as 65 groups pull out. Don't disrupt commercial activities, vehicular movements, Lagos CP tells protesters. Presidency maintains the protest is illegal as CSOs and NLC allege government's plot to disrupt demonstrations. On the forex crisis, this paper, Punch, is also talking about the crisis threatening modular refineries, 25 billion naira daily crude import, and BDC operators plan mergers, fault mandatory deposit. Let's check out what Ibrahim has.
First news is the first with me here. Probe, Buhari's minister, colleagues battle Tinubu's special investigator over Afenifere. And the writers read, move to stop extension of investigation to them. Launch massive media war, smear campaign against Obaze as 259 anti-corruption coalition urges Tinubu to protect special investigators' life, disregard corrupt individuals, groups fighting back. Hardship, don't partake in protest, Afenifere begs Yoruba, other Nigerians. Again, Atiku tackles Tinubu, says you're responsible for Nigeria's economic woes. Hardship, you can't threaten me. Zulum warns IDPs considering joining Boko Haram. Protest begins tomorrow as planned. NLC insists as 65 CSOs withdraw. Police vow to clamp down on protesters blocking roads. NLC protest, not contempt. Falana writes AGF. Qatar makes U-turn, says investment forum will hold during Tinubu's visit. Ondo Goba primaries, I'm sure of victory. Aida Tiwa boasts. Nigerians welcome lifting of regional sanctions by ECOWAS. Tinubu sets up tripartite economic advisory committee after crucial meeting with Dangote, Elumelu, others. Forex crisis, Obi deplores raids on BDCs. Tackles federal government. On the bottom strip, Inferno raises FCT Minister of State's residence. Inquirer, the Abuja Inquirer is next. 33 years after Abuja Master Plan up for review. Lack of funds, delayed review. That's according to the FCDA. 2023 polls gobbed 355.2 billion naira. Why IREV failed. That's according to INEC. Forex crisis, Obi tackles federal government over raid on BDCs. Abuja vows to protect contractors from hoodlums. You see that on page 5. Fire God's FCT Minister of State's residence. How women can be empowered in the agri-value chain. Ode, and over 80% of Nigeria's crude oil stolen. That's according to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. The Vanguard newspaper is next. Job losses, factory closures loom as unsold goods pile up. Man, Naira plunges 254% in 8 months. Existence of MSMEs further threatened. Asbon, CBN should adopt managed flotation of Naira, CPPE. Nigeria reaping the benefits of reforms. You see the infographic saying 3.46% year-on-year GDP growth in first quarter of 2023 versus 2.54% in third quarter. A better performance than anticipated. Capital importation into Nigeria up 66%. Petrol importation is down 50%. January 2024 Nigeria Stock Exchange 100,000, 1.55 million. Oil production has risen from 1.22 million barrels per day to 1.55 million barrels per day. That's an interesting story by the Vanguard newspaper. Above the masthead, white time is running out for Tinubu to do the right thing. Ben Obi, Edo Goba, 15 men, 1 woman angling to succeed Obaseki. You can read that up, further on the Vanguard newspaper. Daily Trust is next. Qatar backtracks, host Nigeria Business Forum. Nigerian Northern senators welcome ECOWAS lifting of sanctions. Hardship, NLC mobilizes for protest despite federal government's warning. Gaza truce talks resume in Doha. Builders seek alternatives as cement price soars. That's about it for the Daily Trust. Next is the Platform Times. Investigation. Top police officers fingered in Ogun land grabbing war. Over 80% of Nigeria's crude oil stolen. Obasanjo urges urgent action to salvage economy. Battle for accountability. Buhari's minister. Allies clash with Tinubu's special investigator. Afenifere urges Yorubas to refrain from protesting against Tinubu's economic reforms. Atiku urges Tinubu to embrace Argentina's economic recovery model. Above the masthead, NDLEA busts crime ring in major drug seizure at Tinkan Seaport, and 80 CSOs withdraw from planned NLC protest for economic recovery. This Nigeria is next. Fire raises residents of the FCT Minister of State, Mahmoud. Market cartels to blame for rise in prices of food items, says Consumer Protection Council. And the writers read, Tinubu sets up tripartite economic advisory committee. 7 die in stampede during 10,000 naira rice distribution by customs in Lagos. AGF, Falana clash over NLC planned nationwide protest. Borno spends 40 billion naira on IDP's feeding program. This is according to Zulum. On the ear of the newspaper, Ohaneze seeks Gowon's apology over civil war comments. National economy is next. Customs duty rate. Vehicle clearance cost rises by 235% in 8 months. And federal government bans cooking gas export to tackle price surge. World Food Program halts local food purchases in Nigeria amid soaring prices and tackling challenges of infracos on ICTs. Next is Daily Independent. CBN proposal on BDCs may see ABCON emerging as a company. And Syrup sues governors, Wike over missing 40 trillion naira local government allocations. Not going back on hardship protests tomorrow, says NLC. And Tinubu meets private sector players over economic problems. Next is Nigerian News Direct. Experts project hike, tightening of MPR as CBN holds first MPC meeting today. Global Finance Awards, EcoBank Group as best bank for SMEs. And we are committed to making Southwest more economically viable. Chairman OIL, Bimbo Ashiru. You can pick that up and read more. Business Day is next. CBN mops up 1.51 trillion naira in 4 months to stabilize economy. That's it. Floating stone on water. Then you can see the Nigeria reaping the benefit of reform right there on the front page of Business Day newspaper, as do others. The Guardian newspaper is next. Nigeria falling out of top 4 African economies on weak currency. 65 CSOs withdraw as NLC dares federal government, mobilizes for nationwide protest. Stop blame game, adopt Argentina's reforms. Atiku tells Tinubu, conditional cash transfer to resume amid probe. That's about it for the Guardian newspaper. Last but not the list, Nigeria's Joshua Musa sets world record in food tower challenge. Also, AFDB DG to deliver Nature's News anniversary lecture in Abuja tomorrow. Federal government justifies delay in palliative food distribution. Dead fishes in Bonny River. NLG calls for calm. And Shelter Afrique, FMBN partner to tackle housing deficit. Civil society calls for halt to Nigeria's external debt. And fact check, is a fish swamp a blessing or warning for disaster? That's about it for the newspapers.
All right. So many stories before us. One, as we see, is the most prominent, and that's the scheduled NLC protest, as Labour leaders insist there is no going back. It's, well, from what we see so far, despite the pleas and the moves by and reactions by many quarters, including the presidency and the police, Labour says that this two-day protest scheduled to commence tomorrow will continue as planned, but then there are lingering concerns over the fears that these protests, this nationwide protests, might be hijacked by hoodlums. The fear of breakdown of law and order is also high. We've seen many police commands across the country also reacting, saying that they have deployed the needed personnel. Lagos, the Nigeria's commercial capital, is not left out. We read in the news earlier in the day that residents should be assured of safety of lives and property, and the police has also said it will come down hard on anyone who impedes the free flow of traffic and the movement of of persons. That is, in Kaduna State, for example, there is also a stance by the police that they would rather the protest doesn't hold, considering the volatile nature of Kaduna State, which has been enjoying, according to the police, a relative peace this past month.
So many CSOs are also reacting. Others, like for instance, like 65 CSOs who have actually pulled out Absolutely. Of the NLC, which continues to dare the federal government on nationwide protest. It looks like not everyone is in support of the protest, but truly, if you look at it, the government is actually coming up with different reforms. It's so glaring that they're not staying. They are not they're not on pause or chilling. On the woes Nigerians
if one doesn't work,
exactly.
another solution or another proposal is being brought
so
forward.
what are the solutions that NLC has been bringing to the table? We are saying that there are some agreement that have not been, but what are the solutions? What are the things that you're advising the government to do? I remember when Joe Ajaero, sometime last year, saying that the CNG program should be given to them so that for them to manage and all of that. So many things. And then you feel like exactly what is the place of because before it used to be the CSOs who would always ensure that there's protest in the country, and then the Labour, the NLC follows suit. But now looks like the CSOs are not, maybe due to regulations or probably some personal aggrandizement and all of that, they seem to be weakening out, and they are not the one pushing for protest. But the way we see it now, looks like the CSOs are actually even against the protest as against the NLC, saying that they want to go ahead. That's why some people are asking, are you sure this is not politically motivated? Are you advising the government on doing certain things, or you just want to heat up the policy? But all the same, it's still within their rights to go ahead, for Nigerians to go ahead to protest. But then Afenifere is advising Nigerians and all other ethnic groups not to join in the protest. So whichever way we want to go about it, I call for peace, I call for calm, and I hope that everything will go on smoothly. But it will be right for us to see that the labor union are actually is actually giving federal government quality and formidable solutions, bringing it to the table for the federal government to implement.
Right, and of course, this is yet another instance where dialogue is called for. Mechanisms to dialogue and peaceful reconciliation shouldn't be shattered. The dispute resolution channels should continue to hold. But from what we are seeing so far, Labour is defiant on this. It's promised to continue to go on, press on with its demands. Of course, there's the thorny issue of the minimum wage increment,
which was even touted at first by the president before the NLC even came about.
Yes. But of course, there hasn't seemed to be an agreement as to what would be
there is a committee
There's a tripartite committee on that, but then discussions are ongoing. For the federal government, there is also the issue of there is an injunction that the federal government insists has already more or less curbed the powers of NLC and its affiliates to embark on this nationwide strike. But of course, it's this nationwide protest, which NLC is saying that if they find out that they are not allowed to embark on their right, as you put it, their rights to embark on peaceful protest, it would escalate further. And we have been down this road before. We know what Labour is, trying to say, what they are insinuating. It might also might also lead to a strike. And we know the impact of that. And so many Labour, so many groups, NGOs have also spoken about the need for caution on the part of Labour leaders at this time. Even here in Lagos, there was a coalition of groups that met on Sunday, also saying that in addition to what the federal government is doing, they are also saying states, and top of which is Lagos State, coming up. Only a few days ago, we saw how Lagos State also came up with another round of reprieves, so to speak, economic reprieves for the residents, not just civil servants, even though some civil servants were saying, or teachers, public teachers were saying, okay, so this one that civil servants get to have 3 days a week to work. What about us? What about us? They have a midterm break, and they have the other, vacation periods and all of that. But I remember I was at a gathering over the weekend where that question, of course, there were many public teachers there, and that question, cropped up. So what about us? But then there is also a rebate on transportation. There are food markets that had to be established to help, and there are canteens too that have been the butt of jokes since the governor announced that there will be mama puts, there will be canteens on ground to ensure that regular Nigerians get to benefit from the free meals and other palliatives. But crucial for me, from what you said, one of which is whatever happens to Labour, and when it resolves to go on board on a move as this protest, for example, we don't see Labour and its affiliates, speaking with one voice. Yeah, that's right. We continue to see, will I call it cracks? And, in the Labour body as it is, people, especially when we still have the cloud, the dark cloud of the NSAS, the post-NSAS destructions. Right. And so that is always, one caution that even NGOs, as you say, that on a good day, they would have been leading the call for protests and all of that. But everybody's just saying, especially in Lagos, we know what we lost as a state. We know what we lost as a citizenry. And we don't want to walk those times again. And of course, there's also the issue of, yes, government is coming up with policy after policy to right the situation. But the CSOs, particularly those in Lagos, said they would also continue to monitor and see what government is doing to be sure that all these palliatives that are meant for the poor get to those who truly need them.
That's right. So that's why it's also very important that the Labour Union is also engaging the government at the subnational level. It's not everything is not about the president. Everything is not about the federal government. How are we holding, the state, unions? I mean, the state governments rather, unions of the state of the subnationals. Are they holding them to account? Most oftentimes we always talk about we shred the federal government budget, the national budget, but we do not even talk much about the state government's budget and how they implement them. So these are the places where we want to be seen in the NLC. This is where we want them to be active. This is where we want them to, because if you're not fighting, for people's rights, and it's seen that you are doing it as the way you're doing it for the federal government, then it looks like you're just being. You're not exactly sure what you really want as a union. So if the TUC is saying, okay, listen, this is you're going on a wild goose chase, we are not joining you on this, and then you are insisting that you're going on this, even though they are senior advocates of Nigeria, they are legal counsel, saying that it will not amount to contempt. It will not amount to contempt, that it should go ahead. But all the same, I feel that it's very important that they come together and say, listen, because it might, at the end of the day, lead to. Because if this thing, the way they are planning, as they are mapping out their own plans for this protest, others, criminals, they are also, thinking of how they also want to, profit out of this. Because before you know it, they hijack the protest, and then the Nigeria police is already saying that, listen, guys, you need to be very careful when you hit the streets.
All right. The day is young. We'll see what pans out regarding this planned nationwide protest of the NLC.